Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of Life Coach Labs. I'm your host, Chris Angel. I'm here today with my friend, Sean. Sean, how are you?
Fantastic, man. It's always good to be in your space.
Thank you. You too. I feel that way about you. We've had one moment in person, face to face, a couple of years ago. But I feel like
Great
I know
moment,
you.
by the way. Might have just been one moment in time, for a couple days out there, but that was an epic moment.
It was an epic moment. Yeah, it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. But I've enjoyed our interactions online since
For sure.
then, and I feel like you're a kindred spirit. Not just as a human, but also in the world of coaching and how we view the industry of coaching. So
I think there's a lot
that.
of resonance between the two of us, and not that we're the only ones talking about it, but I really appreciate that you talk about the truth, and you don't try to sugarcoat fantasies and sell it to people. And, you just, I think the world of coaching really needs people to just tell them what they're signing up for, and like the idea that we can change people's lives and we can potentially be successful doing that, even if it's early on, still keep a job and make a little bit of money on the side and change people's lives. And then for people that really want to commit to it, potentially maybe do this full time. That's sexy enough, man. Like there doesn't need to be any sugarcoat on that. That's sexy enough.
Right.
And I appreciate you just keeping it real with people. So I always love when you just speak your truth. Online.
Yeah. There's all kinds of, let me do, I want to go all kinds of places with you, but let me give a little context for who you are. So people listening can relate to like, Sean didn't just graduate from life coach school yesterday. Like you give us a little background of what you've been doing with life coaches.
Yeah, I've been coaching for over 17 years. I got into the industry in 2005, just for my own personal benefit.
Wow.
I really dove into Jack Canfield's work, primarily the deepest, and just really resonated with him for similar reasons that you and I've already just touched on here in the first few minutes, that he's real. And I was able to get, and anybody who doesn't know Jack Canfield, he's the co-creator of Chicken Soup for the Soul. Pretty much everybody knows that. Yep. And he was huge behind The Secret and Success Principles. So he's one of the celebrity, level A celebrities in personal development. And I got to know him not just in front of everybody in terms of the, seminars and stuff, but then I spent a little bit more time with him and started to do a lot of his, like help him on the assisting teams and stuff like that. And eventually got to know him a little bit more personally. And it was really powerful for me to see his authenticity. And so I really latched on to him for many, many years. And he created a hope for me that I can be real, that as a man, I can be vulnerable, that I can be flawed and still be a teacher. Jack was a school teacher, just like I was. So I resonate with his style. Yeah. And just like, let's break this down. Let's talk about the truth about life and success. And, but my early journey in personal development, finding my purpose and understanding beliefs and identities and all these things, that was all through Jack's work. And so I spent a good 8 to 10 years in his space, in his ecosystem, shared the stage with him several times, and just fell in love with transformation. Right. And so pretty soon after I got rolling and realized that I've got this purpose and I don't want to be sitting on my hands. And pretty soon I started to do my own events and was pulled into the world of Mary Kay. I think you know a lot about that story, where I was doing a lot of work with Mary Kay. And never would I have thought that's what I would be doing, but I created a pretty cool brand called the Pink Caddy Coach in the Mary Kay world. And I spent all of my time and energy just helping women in Mary Kay.
Wow.
And I thought, what they really needed or wanted was just help with their sales and recruiting. If anybody doesn't know, Mary Kay is a direct sales company. So a lot, it's an at-home, entrepreneurial opportunity. And what I found, man, was, it doesn't matter what the product is, and it doesn't matter who the person is. We still have our own human challenges and our own human fears and all these things. So I spent years and years and years in the Mary Kay world specifically. And then after about, I'd say 6 or 7 years, I started to talk to a lot of people who wanted to be life coaches, people who are either, already been certified or wanting to get certified. And I never really started out as being like a coach's coach. That never excited me at all. But just out of so many conversations, I recognize so many people have a desire, they have a work ethic, but there's really no consensus in the life coaching industry about what to do.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if I wanted to be a lawyer, I can't decide that I don't like the content of, the California law school.
Right.
So I don't like your bar content. So I'm going to go somewhere else who's going to give me an easier path, to pass the bar. I don't have that option. The only option I have is which law school do you want to go to? Right. And when do you want to take the bar exam? But this is the consensus. And the life coaching industry doesn't have that, which has some, maybe some pros, but I think it has a lot more cons.
Yeah.
And so that's what pulled me into just wanting to share my experience. Like you've got to be really clear on who it is that you're helping, and you've got to get really good, and you've got to believe in yourself, and you've got to give people experiences. And then over the course of just sort of organically getting into a lot of these conversations, I started to develop my own certification program. So our flagship products right now are certification programs where people come in, they can do it online, or we do stuff in person and more extended, and just really dive into the process of changing a human life. How do we know what's going on inside the human brain and all that sort of stuff. And then, we've put together some marketing programs and so forth. But so I've been really, I would say, committed more to the life coaching industry. I'd say the last 6 to 7 years, and just going all in on like what causes people to succeed and what causes people to not. What causes people to either struggle or go slow or eventually quit. And, we've got, anybody listening to this, like it's somebody that wants to make a difference in people's lives, right?
Right.
Like the people that want to be life coaches have this pure heart of intentionality. And there's a lot of confusion, unfortunately, about what it is that we actually need to do. Yeah. And I just honor people that, that want to change lives. Like, I think it's the most noble decision that we can make. And, and so I'm here just like you are, like helping people that really want to do good on the planet.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you. That's so good. It's interesting because I feel like there's some different places to go there. But I feel like one of the things that connected as you were sharing was that the connection of personal development and life coaching. Like when you have been impacted by personal development, it is common for you to then want to share that with others. And professionally, the way you share that with others is typically through life coaching. Like unless it used to be maybe before life coaching was taking off, you'd be a motivational speaker.
Right.
Maybe you'd be an author. But as the coaching industry has, I think, risen, I think life coaching specifically as an offshoot of that has risen. And it's more common now for people to consider hiring a life coach than in the past, where you're like, you're a life coach? What is what is that? That's laughable. Like a life coach. Right. But that doesn't mean that people haven't been impacted by personal development for years and years and years. I just think now there's sort of a cultural agreement that is bubbling up that says, hey, I would choose to spend some money on hiring a coach to help me through my own personal development. I think that's more common now.
Yeah, I agree. And, back when I started, a lot of people didn't know what a life coach is.
Yeah.
And so we had to explain, like you get coaching for golf or coaching for finances, right? Like we can actually coach you in life. I mean, we spend so much time in our educational systems and just society programming, like learning how to do so many of these various areas of life, how to create skills in certain areas. But we don't really teach humans how to deal with life.
It's funny because if I were going to ask, like, I've seen memes like this all around. If I asked parents, like, hey parents, would you like for your kids to be exposed in high school, middle school, college to life skills, like thinking skills? Like everybody, I don't know a parent that would say, no, I don't want that for my kids.
Never.
But that's exactly what life coaching is for, those who are grown up now and want to have a better access to that type of mastery.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I'm a parent. I know you're a parent. So we definitely share those same ideas that, I've got one child out of high school now and another one who's a junior, and I want them, like, I don't really care, honestly. I don't care what grades they get in the academic areas. I mean, it's cool because I want them to be able to learn.
Yeah.
The ability to learn is more important than what they learn, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But if they don't come out of school with life skills, well, I mean, what's the point of being smart and not knowing how to manage emotions? And not knowing that we can actually change our thoughts,
Right.
And the majority of us that have been into this work for a while, almost everybody also says, man, I wish I would have known this in high school.
Yeah.
I wish I would have learned this. I wish I would have been taught these skills growing up rather than, when the War of 1812 was fought. Right. And, all these various things that are cool. They check a bunch of academic boxes, but they don't really help humans live their lives, especially dealing with adversity and challenges and, especially all the stuff the world's going through now. Right. So I'm right with you. And hopefully with the younger generation coming up, life coaching being introduced to them at an earlier age, or a lot of their parents, such as you and I, are into coaching. And so it's already going to be in the soil a little bit more.
Yeah. Right.
And I hope that the idea is much more commonly, like, it's just a part of common knowledge. Like, of course, if you wanted to be an Olympic athlete, there's no Olympic athlete that's ever gotten to the Olympics without a coach.
Right.
It's just, you wouldn't even consider being a high level athlete and not having a coach. That is not even a question. So I would like that to be more common knowledge about life. Because it is so valuable.
Well, I think that, that's probably a good segue to what I really want to dig into with you is the conversation of leadership. Because I think when I think about the industry on a whole, or I even think about life coaches I've interacted with, there is a gap. There's a leadership gap in the industry. Like, there are people who have been impacted by personal development. It made a difference for them. Then they go put the hat on called I'm a life coach. They put it's a business hat, marketing hat. It's a I don't feel in my skin about being a business person as a life coach. And what happens from a leadership perspective, a narrative, is that there's a dumbing down or a disconnect of their magnificence, their divinity, their strength. So how the public, I think, relates to life coaches a lot of times is like, I've seen lots of memes that are going around also about life coaching is like a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
We teach coaches how to be coaches. But so the way that the public relates to us as the kind of people who could help them in personal development doesn't get the consideration it should, because who we're being as life coaches doesn't command the respect.
Man.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because
whew. I got a lot of feelings about that. A lot of thoughts.
Yeah, I know you would. So
and I appreciate even the way you position it, with integrity and advocacy for the work itself. I do believe there's a real component in the life coaching industry that does operate like a pyramid scheme. It's coaches helping coaches, and I know a lot of coaches, honestly, that didn't make any money as a coach until they started teaching coaches how to make money as a coach. And not that that's the whole industry, but there is a piece of the industry that's run by that. And the problem with that is then the life coach is the life coaching industry's main customer. And that's never a good thing. Right. Whereas the coaching industry should be helping just average everyday people with their lives, not just with coaching and building a coaching business. I think the other component to that is the definition of success for a lot of coaches has become just, can you get clients? Not can you be a good coach, right? Going back to that law school analogy, you have to be deemed competent before you get to enter the courtroom, or before you get to practice as a lawyer. But there's really no competency consensus. And because of that, a lot of people are just trying to shortcut and trying to get to the cash. And I think that's why there's been a lot of people out there who are not in the coaching industry that do have these negative experiences and therefore negative perceptions of life coaching, because there isn't a consensus, right?
Right.
And all of that is important for coaches to understand, not to be cynical or to take anybody's hope away, but you have to understand what the market is and how they think.
Yep.
The good news about that is there's never been, I don't think in all of my experience in this industry, there's never been a time where the easiest way to be better, the easiest way to stand out, the easiest way to be distinct is just to be really good and give people powerful experiences, because a lot of people haven't. And so we've got to understand, like, life coaching is not, it's not a commodity that people know they need.
Right.
So I was talking to a friend of mine just the other day about the difference between marketing in the car industry, because his wife is in the car industry, and marketing in the coaching industry. And I was like, you really can't compare the two, because when people need a car, they need a car, right? Like that. I mean, most people are not going to go, I'll just walk. So we've already decided that we need a car. Whereas with coaching, people haven't already decided that they need a coach, as we've already talked about. So we need to give them an experience that creates the value in what a lot of people just think of as like a luxury service, right? This isn't something that people need the way most people think about it. But so we have to give them a deeper experience. And because of that, we as coaches, it's calling us forward. And leadership is one of the ways. It's calling us forward, because we can't just put a product on the shelf called life coaching and then compete with pricing or branding the way other commodities compete against each other, and then just expect people to buy this product called life coaching. It's not the way it's going to work. We've got to cut through a lot of the resistance that people have. And a lot of this has nothing to do with just life coaching. It has to do with internet and, with the pandemic and all kinds of things. But we have to understand the people that we're trying to help. And so it's calling us forward to say, if you really want to help people and you really want people to pay you, especially to help them, then you got to be good and you've got to give them an experience that they value. If they value the experience you give them, then they might value more experience in the form of money. They might actually pay you. So I've got this philosophy that in the coaching world, you should get valuable first, then get visible, and then get valued, right? Like get really good and then market, and then people will pay you. And it's not exactly linear like that, obviously, but if you want people to pay you, you've got to increase your value. And the only thing that matters is, do they perceive you to be valuable? Right. And I love how you brought in leadership, because again, this isn't just a commodity that we're going to throw on the shelves. We need to model the outcomes that we're wanting to offer people. I mean, like, have some fun while you're doing this. There's so many people that are so tight because of all the fears and whatever the conflicts are. But then they don't understand why people aren't purchasing them. It's because the energy that so many of us are giving off is just, super intellectual or super dry, or, you can almost feel the conflict, right? So leadership is about being something worth following. Being someone worth following. The beautiful thing about that is it's calling us to rise up. It's a call for us to be the essence of a leader, and not just try to get people to pay for our stuff.
What is that? Talk me through some of the components of that. Because I sort of feel like what can happen is I answer the call to be a life coach. I feel this calling in my soul. I'm like, I'm going to be a life coach. So I take the risk, I take the plunge, I do it. And then I show up, and I think how a lot of people feel is like, they feel like they're a guest in someone else's industry. Like, I'm a life coach, but my leadership is lacking because I don't feel like I have the right. I haven't been here long enough to say what's broken or not broken. I haven't learned the way it is for life coaches to do a certain, there's a lot of waiting for permission from who knows who. to show up and lead. But I think if we could start to have the conversation of what leadership looks like as an industry or as individuals, so this is what coaching, this is what leadership is. And you don't need permission to lead. Leaders don't look for permission to lead. Leaders lead. That's what leaders do. That's leadership.
Yeah.
What are some of the elements of leadership so we could start to look for how to bring that forward?
We just had this conversation at a pretty deep level earlier today. The idea that when we're asking somebody else to tell us what to do, that's not a leadership journey. That doesn't mean that we can't be given advice and, mentors and all that stuff. Yes. But we can't be so committed to figuring out the right way to do things, the 1, 2, 3 turnkey approaches, because essentially, like if somebody were to come to me and say, tell me exactly how to build my coaching business, and I gave them a list of instructions, and let's just say they did all of them and it worked out better than they could have imagined, they haven't built a decision muscle. All they've done is follow directions. So if they follow those directions, when they get to the end of the piece of paper, they got to come back to me and ask me for their next set of directions. And then even if they follow those directions, even if they succeed and make a lot of money, nowhere along the following directions path is leadership built. So I think one of the main components of what you're talking about is making decisions. And it seems like it's so elementary, but we make a distinction between entrepreneurs and employees. The employee programming is not about making decisions. The employee programming is do what you're told. The entrepreneur in programming is about making our own decisions. And so the majority of people that are in the life coaching industry, they want the freedom and the independence of building a business. And to use what I think is such an important word that you've used, which is leadership. They want the freedom of leadership, but they want that to be built through a tell me what to do and I'll do it model. Right. And that's just not going to ever work. And so we can give people, like some things to do for sure. I'm not saying that we just, push people out of the nest and they just figure it out, but there's got to be independence being built.
I think that's why I bring it up, because I think if everybody's got to start somewhere. And when you start, it's helpful to have some models or some steps, some things
for sure
that are best practices. Like, hey, here's how you shorten your learning curve. I think what's missing as people do that, though, like you're saying, is the whole decision-making muscle along the way. Like if we could incorporate that from day one, how you would be relating to the recipe, the formula, the system, the process would be so different, because you wouldn't be doing it from a place of permission. You would be doing it from more of a critical thinking place.
Yes.
Like bring everybody that gets into life coaching, I think obviously they want to help people. Personal development was important to them in their life. It was part of their truth. They thought, I want to help others do the same thing. And then but you got to look out into the world and say or see what is the problem you see that needs to be solved, and bring your leadership to that, and then start to build your practice around solving that problem in the world. And now when you relate to someone's recipe, formula, system, process, you're doing it from a place of how does this thing I'm investing in solve the problem my life is for? Not if you do it absent of a problem you're trying to solve, then all you're going to do is ever follow somebody around for their system and process, because you're hoping that delivers the solution, and it's not.
Yeah. There's a missing piece, I think, for a lot of people. I think there's two things that come to mind to plus what you're saying. Yeah. Number one, a lot of people are getting into the life coaching industry for their own personal ego benefit. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. If people want to make money, if people want to have a lifestyle they want to have, great. I've personally not seen anybody succeed being driven by those kind of vanity desires in the life coaching industry because there's just too many emotional hurdles.
Right.
And those ego desires, in my experience, just simply don't have enough juice to them to overcome the challenges. What does have enough juice are two things that I've experienced. And if I look back on, all these 17 years and the distinction between why a lot of people quit and why people don't, or why people succeed or not, is I think there's two depths of connection. Number one, our own experience. So I have a moment that I talk a lot about. I call it my piano bench moment, where I was really struggling. I was in a seminar. I was given a task, like an exercise to do. It tore me up. I started crying, and a life coach pulled me out, middle of a hotel lobby. There was nowhere to sit. So he sat me on the piano bench. It was the only place to sit. And he walked me through this process. And in about 15 to 20 minutes, he helped me unravel all of this emotional baggage that I've been carrying around. And for me, it was a I'm not good enough belief. And that belief was stopping me everywhere in my life, pretty much. And so he helped me feel something different. When I went home that night, my wife asked me what happened to me. My friends were asking me, what are you on? Whatever it is, I don't care. I want some of it. Like, they felt something different. And I made a decision in that moment, even though it wasn't conscious until a little bit later, but I made a decision, like, everybody's got to feel this. I mean, this is ridiculous, right? I didn't know this was even possible. I wasn't even into coaching. I was actually like, I was against the idea of coaching. But then this guy gives me an experience that I can't deny.
Right.
And I just went, oh my God, everybody's got to feel this.
Right.
And so a lot of people don't have that experience that pulled them into coaching, or people do, but they don't touch it enough. They don't remember that there's an intrinsic drive that you just have to teach the thing that you know to be true now. And that's got enough juice for most of us. If anybody doesn't have that, that's okay. You can learn that. You can get that through your clients by doing the work. But most people have a moment where they decided something just fundamentally changed me, and I think I might want to do this. So that's the first level of connection that I think a lot of people are missing. And that's what we can use to fuel ourselves. The second thing is with another human. We got to remember that the life coaching industry is designed to help people, but people is made up of individual persons. It's individual humans. And so I believe that most people, and this is my experience personally and with all of our students, most people will do more to serve a human than they will to make a dollar. So if making a dollar is not going to get you over the hump, but serving a human will, because we all just have this drive to help. So if we can identify who's the person out there that I want to serve, so much of this journey, as you know, Chris, is about getting back up when you get knocked down. And we will generally get back up for a person than we will for any kind of vanity desire. We're going to get back up to help a human than, to put money in our account. So those are the two human connections that I've found. When people struggle or when people quit, they're not connected to either one of those. They're not connected to their intrinsic reason why they have to do this. I call it your soul's obligation. And they're not connected to the human connection outside of who needs me to do this. Who's somebody that is at least a step or 1,000 steps behind me in the journey? Who can I go back and help? And no matter where we are in our journey, there's somebody behind us that we can help. So we might be in second grade trying to get into third grade, but if we're only in second grade, we can help all the first graders. We can help the kindergartners, right? We can turn around and help somebody do something on the path. And that's just an ongoing process. And then when we get into third graders, now we can help second graders, right? There's always somebody behind us on our journey that we can help. And if we stay connected to those humans and our intrinsic desire, then we have a chance, man.
I love that. I think that sort of exposes one of the problems. If we looked at how I think it happened, how the the progression into becoming a life coach happens, I think, like for me, there was a moment where I felt like I'm uniquely wired for coaching. Like that, I love doing it. Every time I get to do it, it's a good day for me.
Right.
I think I'm uniquely wired for it. And so then I thought, oh, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go do that. I wasn't connected to an existential problem. I wasn't connected to the problems of humans. I was only connected to my gift and my desire to coach. And I thought, and I was also connected to, I don't want to be an employee anymore.
Right.
So I'm not going to do that. So that I'm going to go take the risk and become a coach. I did that in 2011.
Yeah.
So 11 years ago. So I went to become a coach. And as I did it, I thought, this would be great because now I don't have somebody telling me what to do. So that's autonomy. I've got like the opportunity to make all kinds of money as an entrepreneur. And so the decision to become a coach came from not an existential problem, not a cultural problem to solve, not a human I was connected to, but something I was trying to do for me. And I got into coaching, and the problem was that because I wasn't connected to those things, I didn't have there wasn't a leadership or a tone to my own voice.
Yeah.
Because I was sort of floating in a new industry, not exactly sure how I was going to be valuable. What experience am I going to create for somebody? I don't know. Yeah. And so where I went, and where I think a lot of coaches go then is, crap, I made the jump. Now I need to make some money. Let me, what are the marketers saying I need to do?
Bingo.
And before we ever get to what our soul's obligation is, which is what should be the originating source of the call. Yeah. Before we ever get to the soul's obligation, we're like treading water for money. And we're like, this can't be an expensive hobby for me. What do the marketers say I need to do? And now it's like, charge what you're worth, have your, all these expensive programs. Like, and now we're
trying to get high ticket clients. Yeah.
Right. Now we're taking advice from actually from the wrong people, the wrong source.
Right.
Not from people who have been before us, but from people who are trying to sell us their programs so that we can sell our programs.
Yeah. And one of the reasons that's really critical to understand is that if you take a recipe, any recipe, and you change any of the ingredients, the recipe fundamentally changes. Mm-hmm. You can't take the recipe for a chocolate cake and remove the eggs and, put in, I don't know whatever non-egg thing is. I'm not a cook. So right. I don't know what it would be, but right. Whatever, right? Yeah, meat, yeah. Right? You can't change a fundamental ingredient of a recipe. Yeah. And so there's nothing wrong with marketers teaching marketing. Right. But if I want to help people in their relationships, because I think I've got some stuff that would really help people in their romantic relationships, let's say. Mm-hmm. And then I try to follow the template that an internet marketer sold me, who's selling a different product to different people. Right. And then I think that's going to work when I try to sell my more happiness product to couples. Right. There's two fundamentally different ingredients in the recipes that most people are following, which is the product and the customer. Right. If you're selling a different product to a different customer, that other recipe is not going to work. That doesn't mean there might be some things you can learn from people. Right. But when people get into the desperate state that you painted a picture of, then it's just like, oh my goodness, I'm bleeding. And who's got the quickest Band-Aid that will stop my bleeding? Right. And when we make decisions like that, we're almost never going to make the right decisions. Right. Because, I like to say desperation destroys discernment. We can't discern the right choices when we're in a desperate state, especially in anything related to survival, meaning we need money to eat. Right. We don't have a roof over our head, or we just are freaking out about what we're going to do. So I see a lot of life coaches make that leap as well and put themselves into survival too fast. Mm-hmm. And then they have to leap out of the survival mode, and people can feel that. Yeah. Right. That they can feel that desperation energy. Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of people are in that spot. Whereas if you have something more foundational, here's the thing. I've kind of stumbled on, at least in my like clarity around awareness in this recently, Chris. One of the reasons I think a lot of people chase those things, whatever the, the shiny stuff is, is because fundamentals are not sexy, but fads are sexy, right? And we've got this craving in our brain for the next new thing. Well, there's no such thing as a new fundamental. So if we continually chase our novelty craving, we will never actually build anything strong, because fundamentals are not novel. And so it's like we're constantly trying to satiate that craving that we have for, the sexy sugar. And because of that, we don't build anything stable.
I think this is why the word leadership matters so much to me, because
no such thing as fad leadership. Yes.
Right. Like when you're a leader, you don't follow fads. When you're a leader, you're making decisions based on what you're leading. You're not making decisions based on, is this going to be the thing that causes me to catapult my, out of survival into, success. You're leading change. And whether I always love Jim Collins' Good to Great, where he's talking about, the good to great companies, the hedgehog concept, like, what are you best in the world at? Like, what are you passionate about? What are you best in the world at? And what's the economics behind it? Like, where those three overlap is your hedgehog concept, that the good to great companies, once they found that hedgehog concept, once they found the thing that they could be best in the world at. In other words, let me put it in the context of this conversation. Once they found the thing they could lead, right? Once they found the thing they could lead, it was on average 16 years. On average, across the comparison across the good to great companies, 16 years before they saw the hockey stick moment of breakout results. 16, the fastest was 6 years. 6 years of showing up every day, doing the thing they meant to do to lead. I'm going to lead this. I'm going to lead it. I'm going to lead it. The fastest was 6 years of leading it before they saw hockey stick results.
That's so important to understand. Because we want to start at the hockey stick, right?
Right.
We were just telling the story today to one of our groups about the bamboo. Yes. And I don't know if the story of the bamboo tree is like literally true, at least with the details, but I remember hearing that it like nothing happens for like 5 years.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden the bamboo like grows 80 feet in like 6 weeks or something. Like
something crazy.
It's something crazy, but it's exactly along the lines of what you're saying.
Right.
That, and here's the other thing, because I also think it's important that people don't think that we are saying, you just got to give up on your goals, right? Or you can't succeed through those 6 years or 16 years.
Right.
It's about managing expectations through that process. And you absolutely can succeed. You can make money, especially if you do the foundational concepts and you're smart with several of the decisions that you have to make. You can absolutely succeed. What I've learned is that the more pressure we put on ourselves, the harder everything is. The harder it is to learn, the harder it is to adjust. And so I think there are a lot of, like, if you pressurize those 16 years, you'll probably never hit the hockey stick, because just time on the calendar doesn't matter. It's what do those companies learn in the process of leading for 16 years, or that one outlier for 6 years? What's learned in that process? Now, in the coaching world, there are a lot less variables than a study like that is. I'm sure they're talking about big corporations, stuff like that, or small corporations, but big to us life coaches, right? So you can absolutely do like hit a lot of success with a leaner company like we have. I mean, for me, I spent about 10 months when I decided I was going to be a coach and a speaker. I spent about 10 months really going all in and didn't make anything, but I was learning so much, and I adjusted my focus so many times, and I did so many talks with so many different audiences. I spoke for the Kiwanis Club, and I spoke for boys and girls, and I spoke for a couple schools, and I spoke for like women of worth networking, and I spoke for an insurance agent. Like, I spoke for anybody that would listen for a long time. And at about 10 months is when I hit this clicking point. And for me, it was in the Mary Kay world. And that's when hockey stick happened.
Yeah.
And over the next, I don't know if I've ever told you this story, over the next 8 months, we made almost $300,000.
Wow.
But every single one of those dollars was made, in my opinion, in the 10 months when nothing came in. And it really truly is like that hockey stick, like you said. But what was I learning? What were the, what leadership, to your point, what leadership was I building along the way, so that when the opportunity came, I was ready for it?
Yeah.
And nobody can be ready out of the gate. There are plenty of things that we need to learn so that when opportunity comes, our leadership embodiment is ready for it.
Yeah.
And so we can absolutely be successful. And I think it's important, you know, to some degree to sort of lower the taboo around money, but also not make that the thing that, you know, we think is going to drive us. Right. But my experience is when we're driven more by the intrinsic stuff, then the money follows it. But when we're driven by the money, we actually repel it, especially for those of us that we're just teachers, you know, we're not hardcore salespeople. Like I tell all my students, don't build a boiler room and try to sell things to people. Build a classroom and teach to people. To your point, teach the thing that you can teach from a leadership perspective. And if you teach, you know, enough with enough passion, of course, there are marketing components and mechanics and things you got to learn, but that's icing on the cake. If you build that cake out of passion and leadership, your school will eventually be full. People will register because they have to.
It's good. Yeah. If for those that are listening to this who have been in life coaching for a while, and they have some, there's a measurable leadership quotient at play in their business. I'm curious, for if we just take a quick peek over here for a second, what do you, and maybe this is like, pretend like you're speaking to you and me for a minute, people who have been in it for a while, and think from a leadership perspective, like where is our gap? Where are we not? Like, what can we do to lead forward? How do we get ahead of the curve? How do we lead the industry forward rather than playing catch up? Or, you understand my question? Like,
I think so. Like how with you and I, with having many, many years in the industry, or anybody else that registers on that kind of scale, then how do we lead the leaders to some degree and lead the industry?
Yeah. Like maybe another way to say it. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what I'm asking. But if I said it another way, it'd be like, what are you working on in your leadership? Like, how are you expanding your leadership? And I'd say, like, how am I expanding my leadership right now?
Yeah. I'm really big on embodiment right now. Just like the embodiment journey is one where we just take a lot of action and then recognize when our fears come up and then deal with them. Right. That's a really simplistic way to look at it. But what I've learned over the years is that our bodies, there's actually like neuroscience that says our bodies make most of our decisions. It's not our brains. You know, it's not like, will I follow that template to help me create a million followers and all that stuff? If our bodies are afraid of visibility, it doesn't matter what information you consume. You will never outweigh your body's desire to stay safe. Like, And so our body, like, we're feeding our heads, but our bodies are going, nope, like, we're just not going to do that.
Right.
And there's this embodiment journey that I've been on for the last 4 years or so. And it is like the ultimate in true freedom and true liberation, where it's like, all right, show me where my ceilings are.
Right.
Show me where my fears are. Show me where I've decided I can't grow beyond that. And then let me just challenge myself. And this work is really more about courage than confidence. You know, I made a distinction earlier today. First time I've really thought about this, that most of us are making our decisions based on confidence. But the problem with that is confidence is really about avoiding failure. You know, most of us feel confident when we think we won't mess up.
Right.
But that's not leadership.
Yeah. Right.
Leadership is not about avoiding failure. Leadership is about courage. And so when we bump up against our fear of failure or our fear of visibility or whatever is holding us back, the courageous move is to take a step toward the fire. That's the courageous move. The confident move is to run away from all fear, right? That's the confident move. But the cool thing is, if we focus on courage, we will build confidence. Which is more of an intellectual thing that basically says, look, at every time we take an action, we don't die, and the catastrophe that we were afraid of doesn't happen. But that requires a lot more courage. But when we focus on confidence and we only give ourselves permission to take confident action, courage is never created, because courage requires fear and adversity. And I don't know if I can do it, in the mix. So I would say focusing on courage. And that's probably a thought that I've had over the last 4 to 6 months, where there are things when I go, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have this conversation. I don't want to call up that person. I don't want to make this move. And then I ask myself, what would courage do right now? And I don't try to motivate myself with punishment or shame or any of that. So it's just, what would courage do? And then, like, I can feel my body getting activated right now, because I want the identity of a courageous person. So if courage, the essence of courage, would make that call, then if I make that call, I can feel good about myself and kind of pat myself on the back that I did the courageous thing. And that's that intrinsic piece. And then how I think that expands out, in terms of like leading the industry to some degree. I think what we need to do, for those of us that do want to expand influence, whether it's of our industry or lead leaders or coaches or whatever, I think we just have to be transparent and real. And the great thing about that is there's no skill required to be real. There's only permission, right? You only need to give yourself permission to be open and honest. That doesn't mean you have to tell all your dirty secrets. It just means you got to be real. And that's one of the things that I love about you. And I think anybody that follows you, they really appreciate, whether it's the close-up images that you take of yourself, the selfies, or, this is what was the recent one? Like, this is what 46 looks like, or, just like
45 was hard.
45 was tough, and it was real. And you expose your own self-talk. But you also give people a way out of it, because you don't just want to invite people into the valley. Like, hey, look I'm about to drown in quicksand. You want to come join me? No. But you can tell people about the valleys that you've climbed out of, and give something to them, to hold on to. And so I think the more that we're open with our adversity, the more people can see themselves in us. And then they can go, I think I can do that too, because Chris isn't perfect. He told me he's not. Sean's not perfect. They told me they're not. And so if an imperfect person can just take another step, even if they're afraid, and even if they have insecurities, and even like in my case, even though we made 300 grand in 8 months in that hockey stick, 2 years later, I filed bankruptcy because I didn't understand how to handle money. I didn't know what to do with, what ended up being like $500,000 over my first couple of years. I didn't know what to do with that. So I had a lot of lessons that I needed to learn, that bankruptcy showed up on my doorstep to teach me. I didn't like it. But my point is, the more that we share our failures, but more importantly, the lessons that we've learned, the more that people can see themselves in us. So I think this is a call for leaders to be open and honest and transparent. And that's actually the best way to create trust. And nowadays, I don't think anybody's going to follow you with any level of meaning unless they trust you. And perfection is the worst way to get somebody to trust you.
It's such a good point, because I feel like sometimes the trap coaches can fall into is, I'm supposed to be the one who's figured it out. That's why people would hire me. Like, who's going to hire a coach that hasn't figured it out? But that's the misconception. The reality is, and this is what I mean by, when you think from a leadership perspective, when you're a leader, you know that that's not true. There is no perfection. That every season of life is, to use your word, is you stepping into the next part of your vision with courage, not confidence. It's not confidence that people are hiring. It's your willingness to provide a safe container for them to pursue their dreams, because you have a safe container for you to pursue your dreams. Like,
bingo.
When you're modeling courage, on your own path to your vision, and you air that for people to see, I think people feel safe inside your courage. I'll say that again. People feel safe inside your courage.
Right.
Yeah. Not your confidence. They don't feel safe. In fact, I think it's even gone the other direction now. Like if you front too confident, I think people smell that.
Suspicious.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Perfection is suspicious.
Yeah. Yeah. People feel, I like that. People feel safe inside your courage.
Yeah. I love that.
And that's leadership to me. That's leadership.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It really truly is. It's humanity. You know, people want to feel safe with humans.
Yeah.
Right. Like I've always said that if you want me to get into your airplane, don't tell me that you got, 100 on your flight simulator test. Tell me about the hurricane you flew out.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And then you'll have me listening. Right.
Right.
And so it's our imperfections that not just create trust, but I'm glad you added the word safety. It actually creates safety.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. I would love to read something if I could find it. It's right in this line, because life coaches are really about, a great analogy that we can use is the lighthouse.
Yes. And
we have this idea that we got to be perfect, or we need to have everything, together and so forth. But it's so much more about just guiding people. And I had this thought about 4 years ago where I was frustrated. I wasn't creating the money I wanted. I wasn't creating the impact and so forth. And I had this image like, oh, it's because my light's not on. I wanted all these people to come to me, but I hadn't turned the light on. And then I had this realization that the lighthouse shines the light because that's what the lighthouse does. The lighthouse doesn't shine its light when it can see the boats in the harbor. Right. The lighthouse shines its light, and that's how the boats get to the harbor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when we can just come from this place of identity, like I lead because that's what leaders do.
Right.
I teach because that's what teachers do. I sing because I have a song to sing, not because somebody else is going to love it. So if you don't mind, I've got this poem. It's not completed yet, but it's right on this. I've got like 5 stanzas done, and it's right on this on this line. If
it's a Sean Smith original.
Yeah, it is totally. Yeah,
I love it.
It is. Yeah. So here you go. The lighthouse. When times get tough, there must be a purpose much stronger than your fatigue. And when times get rough, you'll be fueled by service much longer than meeting your needs. So instead of trying to push yourself up the hill for your desires, find the thing to pull yourself that will guide and lift you higher. Find the thing you're willing to fight for, the truth that you've been made for, what you're willing to shine your light for, the dues you've already paid for, the bruises when touched, the cuts when exposed that always make your pain throb. Just remember that a lighthouse never has a perfect paint job. Don't focus on what you're waiting on. Ask who's waiting on you. Don't focus on what more you need. Ask yourself who's needing you. Don't wait for perfection's permission. You'll never be driven by vanity. Don't try to polish your blemishes. Shine a light on your humanity. A lighthouse's paint is never perfect. And if it was, I wouldn't trust it. I only trust the ones that look to me like it's been through some roughness. I trust the one that I can tell the weather has clearly battered, the one with chips and cracks and stains, but still it hasn't shattered, the one that shines its light through the darkness and the hazard. And because that light still shines for me, I somehow feel I matter. I somehow feel important, like the beams were sent to save me, like my dreams are still alive. More hope is what it gave me. And that's all I got.
That's so good. That's perfectly. As you're right, that so fits this whole conversation. I love it. Wow.
Man. And we're waiting to shine our light until we got a perfect paint job.
Man.
And there is no such thing.
I mean, I just feel like that really captures leadership to me, you know, like that's what, like
Yeah.
when you're leading, there is no perfect paint job. Like when you're leading, you know, you get bumped up and pushed around and life teaches you some stuff, but you shine your light because that's what you do. That's what a lighthouse does. You shine because that's
Bingo.
your self-expression,
Yeah.
because you're a leader. Yeah.
And so much of the leadership journey is resiliency. It's not finding the perfectly paved path that we can just skateboard down, right? It's really about getting up and doing the courageous thing and questioning whether you have it in you, and then trying something and finding out. And if we can just commit to the path of resilience,
Yeah.
like I always say, the get back up muscle is way more important than the never get knocked down muscle.
Yeah.
Because life is going to knock us down, and you're
Yeah.
not leading anything or anyone in anything significant if you don't get knocked down.
Right.
But
Right.
when you can trust yourself to get back up,
Yep.
we actually get knocked down less.
Right.
Or we get knocked down less frequently, or it takes us less time to get back up.
Right.
And that's the process of leadership.
That's so good. I think if people got into the business of life coach with the frame of leadership instead of the frame of entrepreneurship, the resiliency, the courage would show up sooner. It's interesting because I think it's the entrepreneurship that is alluring, that is compelling. Right. You're like, ooh, my autonomy, income, etc. But if what you're coming into it as is a leader who's leading change, who's courageously moving forward and to create something that isn't currently there, you'll withstand it. You will be the lighthouse sooner.
Yes.
You will express yourself as the lighthouse sooner because that's how you got into the gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then even before you make all the money, or maybe even any money, there's a sense of soul's satisfaction.
Yeah.
By doing the thing you're here to do, and teaching, right? I mean, turn your light on.
So good, man. Wow. I love talking to you.
Yeah. So I appreciate this conversation. It's deep, and and it's, I think it's what people need.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's what people need.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your light.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate yours too. If people want to learn more about your certifications or any of the work that you're doing with and for coaches, where can people go to learn more, Sean?
Yeah, I'm everywhere online. I'm Coach Sean Smith. So that's my website, .com, Twitter. We do a lot of work on YouTube. So there's, I mean, literally like hundreds of hours of content on YouTube. And that's at Coach Sean Smith. So everywhere is Coach Sean Smith, SEAN. Yeah. Yep. And it's easy to get a hold of us. And we pretty much reply to all questions and comments. So I'd love to engage with anybody that wants to talk further.
Thank you so much, friend, for your time. And I love where you come from. So until next time, be well.
Appreciate you.
Well, that's it, gang. Thanks for listening to this episode of Life Coach Labs. Before I let you go, I want to invite you to two things. One, there is a companion Facebook group to this show called Life Coach Labs. Go to Facebook and search Life Coach Labs. You can see it here on the screen. If I scroll through, this is a companion group to the show. Because it gives me a chance to get to know you. I want to know you as much as you listen to me and my guests. I want to know you. I want to hear about your important work. I want to support you. So please head over to Facebook and join the free Life Coach Labs Facebook group. Number two, let's jump over to the next window here. If you are looking to create recurring revenue in as little as 4 hours a week, I have documented my community model, right? How do you do community? How do you build a membership model for your coaching that incubates the people you want to serve and do it in as little as 4 hours a week? You can head over to lifecoachlabs.com/model. You can see it right here on the screen, lifecoachlabs.com/model, and learn more about how to create recurring revenue in as little as 4 hours a week. Thanks for hanging out with me in this episode. And until next time, be well.